Give us your name and your residential address, and welcome as always to Canton City Council.
Chuck Osborne, 307 Fairview Street, Southeast, North Canton, Ohio. As I told this body here several weeks ago, I'm here for two reasons. Number one, as a resident of North Canton, we have a stake in the upgrade of your treatment plant to the tune of several $1 billion. And secondly, we're involving the fracking waste that will eventually find its way into the landfill. In today's Beacon Journal article, and I quote, "American landfill is accepting drill cuttings, drilling muds, and fracking sands that could have elevated radiation, in part from exposure to underground rocks." That's per the parent company of American Landfill Waste Management. So we're dealing with introduction of new materials. In the last 10 days, I've hand-delivered and emailed many of you on council a 2007 article regarding the City of Alliance's experience with leachate. This is probably well prior to introduction of fracking materials. They had numerous environmental violations. At one point, they were ordered by Alliance to stop taking leachate. The plant superintendent, Mr. Amavelli, stated I would have lived a lot better if we didn't take this leachate. I did update my information. I had talked to him today. They have ironed out the problems that they had during those rough years. Apparently they were accepting any and all leachate that they brought to them. There was some very highly hot or toxic leachate that they now know to stay away from. Again, you're accepting private industry's problems, and there are other ways, I think, to deal with your situation. Number one, the federal government will give you increased time span if you ask to meet these requirements, and they also understand municipalities are under extreme financial pressures, and they will provide funds to help upgrade your facilities. I did also learn today from Mr. Amavelli that the sludge that they have left over from their waste treatment, the sludge has been further processed. It's not something that has to be disposed of in a landfill or incinerated. I'm wondering why the city of Canton doesn't have additional steps to render their sludge more safe for the environment. Also in today's Beacon Journal article, I want to point out, it doesn't seem to me to be very profitable for Canton. It says you expect to receive 60,000 gallons of leachate per day, but the contract calls for allowing them or processing 100,000 gallons a day without charge. So it sounds like you're going to be doing it for free. Again, do your homework. Each and every one of you do your own due diligence. Just don't listen to someone's 2-minute spiel.
Ms. Bogue, good evening.
Good evening.
Welcome to Canton City Council. If you'll give us your name and your residential address, please.
Certainly. My name is Renee Bogue. I live at 204 Willow Avenue in Massillon. Okay.
Please begin. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I am a recently retired educator with the Perry Local Schools who had 35 years of service. When working with my students who are writing research papers based on their side of a controversial issue, I would ask them to search for resources that were current, credible, and authoritative. I would ask my students to look closely at the credentials of the author to see if he or she is qualified to write on the topic. When looking at this leachate issue, I ask myself, where is the research? Where is the research from physicists and environmental scientists? Where is the peer-reviewed documentation by qualified toxicologists? Where is the study done by the United States Geological Survey on the Nimishillen and how this would impact it and residential groundwater wells? Has the USGS done studies to learn whether the stream could be gaining or losing at various times of the year? Is it not true that there have been documented events of flooding over the stream banks? Is it not true that there are fishing derbies and other uses of the stream by children? What documentation do you have that will show us that the solidification process works, i.e. water-soluble radium and other contaminants will not leach into the landfill leachate collection system when we have rainfall? 2 years ago, I donated an old 6-volume set on the history of Stark County to the McKinley Museum. The history of Stark County will be written again. In the future, generation after generation after generation will ask, what poisoned the Nimishillen and what very possibly poisoned the wells along it? Who caused this ecological disaster that affected both wildlife and human life? And if council approves this, in that history book will be listed the names of a handful of councilmen and councilwomen who held the power to protect their community, but they just didn't care. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Howard. Our next speaker.
8866 Bowman Ave. Magnolia.
You're good, thanks.
Thanks. I want to talk again about the pipeline and kind of what Chuck had started on. I'd like to talk about some of the knowns, some of the unknowns of the drilling waste that's headed into landfills. And we've been talking a lot of experts about this as much as we can, because we have jobs to work too, but we put our efforts in. And one of our people, one of our doctors, even commented that there are 33 different isotopes of radium alone. And to not know what we're dealing with and just say, oh, there must be some regulation in place that's going to handle it, so we already have agencies that handle it, isn't adequate. There's a long history of the oil and gas industry having the regulations in place before they ever show up, and inadequate control and pollution problems, and they're known for it. Out-of-state drilling waste containing more unknown constituents that we have no control over are pouring into Ohio's landfills, and therefore into the leachate. And again, there's talks of bringing in on rails and barges, and there's a tremendous amount of potential for drilling waste and cuttings going to Ohio landfills. Since the hazardous elements have not been identified, or the total quantity that will be dumped in any particular landfill, it's impossible to judge the potential risks from leachate containing drilling waste as acceptable. And it's impossible to know that all appropriate regulations have been created and invoked. We don't know what we're dealing with. There's no way anybody in this room can say the regulations in place are adequate to handle what's coming. We don't know.
Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate it.